5 numbers. That is all you need to understand the full damage of 74 days of war in the Strait of Hormuz. $72. That was the price of a barrel of Brent crude oil on February 27, 2026, the last normal day before this war began. $107. That is what it costs right now today. A 49% increase in 74 days, paid by every airline, every trucking company, every family at the pump. $4.46, the average American gas price today, up from $2.98 the day before the war, the highest since 2022, and according to Eurasia Group's senior Iran analyst Gregory Brew, still climbing. $5 is, in his exact words, basically baked in. 440 kilograms, the weight of Iran's stockpile of uranium enriched to 60% purity, the material that sits exactly 2/3 of the way between civilian nuclear fuel and a bomb capable of destroying a city. The material Iran's negotiators told Trump's team 4 days ago verbally, "You are getting it," then took back because they didn't put it in the paper. 74. The number of days this war has been running, 74 days since the International Energy Agency called this the largest oil supply disruption in the history of the global oil market. Not the largest of the decade, the largest ever, 2 to 3 times bigger than the 1973 oil shock. 5 numbers every single one got worse because of 4 words spoken in Tehran 4 days ago. They didn't put it in the paper. Welcome to Dr. Elena Murphy. This channel is your deep dive source for the military, geopolitical, and economic stories reshaping the world. And today I am giving you the most number-grounded breakdown of this war's true cost, the oil price story from $72 to $120 to $107. The uranium arithmetic that explains why. 440 kilograms is the number that determines whether this war ends or explodes. The $700 million the Gulf loses every single day, the $150 million Russia earns every single day, and the 3.8% US inflation figure published yesterday that this war helped create. Make sure you are subscribed right now. These numbers are not abstractions. They are the price of your groceries, the cost of your mortgage, the value of your savings. Let's go. Brent crude surged more than 55% since the Iran war began, hitting nearly $120 a barrel at its peak. March marked one of the largest monthly oil price jumps on record, with Brent gaining 51% as Gulf output fell and exports stalled. The oil production of Kuwait, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and the way collectively dropped by at least 10 million barrels per day by March 12. 10 million barrels gone in 2 weeks, the equivalent of shutting down nearly the entire US oil industry overnight. Today Brent's it's at $107, a market in suspension pricing in the possibility of a deal while accepting the reality that no deal has arrived, and every hour it stays there costs real people real money. The Iran war fueled a US inflation surge of 3.8% published May 12, 2026. Before this war, the Fed had spent 2 years wrestling inflation toward its 2% target. In January 2026, CPI was at 2.4%, almost there. Then February 28th happened, the personal consumption expenditures price index could hit 4% by the end of the year, double the Federal Reserve's target according to the Cato Institute, and the Dallas Federal Reserve's academic modeling goes further still. If the closure of the Strait of Hormuz persists for 3 quarters, the WTI price would gradually rise to $167 per barrel. $167 gas at $6 nationally under a sustained closure scenario. Not a worst-case fantasy, a peer-reviewed Federal Reserve model. If you're finding this breakdown valuable, make sure you are subscribed to Dr. Elena Murphy right now. Hit that bell so you don't miss a single update. Now the number that reveals who is actually winning this war economically. Iran saw an average boost in oil revenue of nearly $25 million per day in March. Russia saw an average increase of about $150 million per day in the same period. Russia, $150 million a day, extra, for doing nothing, for issuing one diplomatic statement, for standing on the sidelines of a war it did not fight while every barrel of its oil sells at a price inflated by a conflict that has nothing to do with Moscow. That is the perverse arithmetic of energy warfare. America pays $4.46 at the pump. Iran briefly earned $25 million extra per day before the blockade reversed it. And Russia collects a $150 million daily windfall every single day for as long as this war continues. Now the uranium, because the 440 kilograms Iran verbally promised and then walked back is not a diplomatic abstraction. It is physics. Iran's existing stockpile is estimated at 440 kilograms of highly enriched uranium at 60% purity. Trump has demanded Iran turn it over and formally halt its nuclear program for at least 10 years. Weapons-grade uranium requires 90% purity. Iran is at 60. The gap between 60 and 90% can be closed by Iran's surviving centrifuges in weeks. The amount needed for a single nuclear device is between 15 and 50 kilograms depending on design. Iran has 440 kilograms, enough once enriched for between 8 and 29 devices. Trump said, "You are getting the uranium." Iran's negotiators said, "You are getting it, but you have to come remove it." Washington said fine, and then somebody in Tehran, the lunatics, in Trump's own word, overruled the moderates who made that promise. Because physically moving 440 kilograms of weapons-adjacent material off Iranian soil was one step too far. Trump told reporters from the Oval Office they changed their mind because they didn't put it in the paper. 4 words, the most consequential 4 words of this 74-day war. The moment a deal that would have ended the largest oil supply disruption in history, removed the most dangerous nuclear material in the Middle East, and brought Brent back toward $80 collapsed because of 4 words. 3 scenarios now define the next 72 hours. Scenario 1. Beijing delivers. Xi Jinping, who is paying 49% more for every barrel China imports, uses today's summit to tell Trump that China will pressure Tehran's moderates directly. The uranium commitment goes in writing. The deal is signed before the week ends. Brent drops between $10 and $20 immediately, anchoring in the $80 to $90 range, though supply chain damage keeps prices above pre-war levels for months. Scenario 2. Strikes resume. Beijing produces nothing actionable. Iran's hardliners hold. The ceasefire Trump called massive life support flatlines. CENTCOM's second phase of Operation Epic Fury, higher level, higher intensity. Trump's exact words, is authorized before the end of May. Oil surges back toward $120. The Dallas Fed's $167 scenario moves from theoretical to probable. Scenario 3. The stalemate calcifies, neither Beijing nor Tehran moves. The ceasefire becomes permanent suspension. Oil prices remain above pre-war levels throughout 2026. The 440 kilograms stays in Iranian hands. Inflation stays above Fed targets, and the largest oil supply disruption in history becomes the permanent background condition of the global economy. What we know with certainty today, this is the largest geopolitical oil supply shock in history, between 2 and 3 times larger than 1973 and 1990. Brent is at $107. Gas is at $4.46. US inflation is at 3.8% and climbing. The Gulf is losing $700 million every day the Strait stays closed. Russia is collecting $150 million daily in war windfall. 440 kilograms of uranium was verbally promised to Washington and taken back. 5 deadlines were set and walked back, and Trump is in Beijing right now to meet the leader of the country secretly routing weapons to Iran. $72, $107, $4.46, 440 kilograms, 74 days, 5 numbers, 1 war, and the most important 72 hours in its entire history happening right now. Subscribe to Dr. Elena Murphy. The Beijing summit is live. The generals have been briefed. Iran's next move is coming. Hit that notification bell, because the number that determines whether you pay $4.46 or $6 at the pump next month is being decided today. Tell me in the comments which of these 5 numbers worries you most. And do you think Trump walks out of Beijing with something that changes any of them?